How's it going, everyone? Got a bit to talk about in this video as we have yet another PlayStation Plus game leak by the looks of it. It's a nice one, certainly that'll be added to the service based on the ratings board listing. However, you know how I feel about PlayStation Plus. I think there's a lot of work to be done with it, but we'll talk about that. On top of that, we do have the Borderlands 4 pre-orders listed, and the game is in fact not $80, it is $70. However, you do have a plethora of editions, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Right off the bat, I do want to note that Legacy of Kain Defiance, a PS2 title, has been rated for both PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 in Taiwan. It'll likely be dropping as a part of the PlayStation Plus catalogs for the month of, I would imagine, July, but that's not confirmed since we already know that we're gonna be getting some Plus Premium titles in July and August, at least in these summer months that they've already noted. The classic Resident Evil games, there's Deus Ex, I think, already dropped, but they already outlined some of the games that were gonna be dropping to Plus Premium. As I've said before, I think Plus Premium, as far as its classics offerings, has been one of the biggest disappointments that PlayStation has ever brought forth, because I was really looking forward to the possibility of classics titles on PlayStation, whether it be PS2 games like the Ratchet and Clank titles, Ico, whether it be, I don't know. There are so many games. There's a billion games that you could add to the Plus Premium catalog. PSP titles like Dissidia, Final Fantasy, Grand Theft Auto, Chinatown Wars, and what we've gotten has been incredibly disappointing for a service that is not cheap, going as high as $160 a year or something like that, and the offerings have been minuscule, and there have been months where we don't even get, like, premium games getting added to the service, and in fact, one of the recent months had, like, 8 games getting removed from Plus Premium, and 1 game in Battle Station Aquila getting added. Like, I feel like I've been crapping on this Battle Station Aquila game so much, but it's just the fact that Plus Premium had like 8 games get pulled and we got 1 game in return. Like, that was probably one of the most insulting Plus catalog updates that I've ever seen. Legacy of Kain Defiance is legit a good addition, and they've had good additions. They've had Legend of Dragoon, they've had Resistance Retribution. It's just we need more of that. We need a little bit more consistency, and I think there's so much opportunity to add quality titles. Legacy of Kain Defiance is one of those, you know, lower-key PlayStation 2 games that I think some people would have expected it to get a remaster done by Aspyr, but you know what? Getting it in the Plus Classics catalog, that's fine too, and there have been instances where games ended up in the Plus Classics catalog and ended up getting remastered anyway, so I could see that happening as well, but you know, we're taking some baby steps in the right direction, but let me just say, emphasis on the baby steps, because there's still such a long way to go, and the fact that, you know, we're talking about Plus's value representing its price point, and the price point being adjusted as the value proposition increases. Like, brothers, come on, man. Plus Premium, if they actually wanted a reason to up Plus Premium's price, if they legit added PlayStation 3 backwards compatibility and threw in games like Infamous and, you know, Little Big Planet and games like this into Plus Premium, that would be a reason to up it, and I think people would pay it. Now, don't lock backwards compatibility just behind Plus Premium, but if you added the catalog titles, I think people would be so excited for that. Unfortunately, we just haven't gotten that, but Legacy of Kain Defiance, I do think, is a decent little addition. I don't think this game had the reception that the Legacy of Kain games from the PS1 era did. The game on Metacritic, in fact, has a 75 on Metacritic. Still decent, but how about this? This game was actually directed by Amy Hennig, who is famed for her work on the Uncharted games. Uncharted, she worked on Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 2, Jak 3 as a game director as well, and now she's working on Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra, which is scheduled for a 2026 release, but we'll see that. She's a boss. She's done a lot of great work, so excited what she does in the future with Marvel Rise of the Hydra. But Legacy of Kain Defiance getting added, hopefully, next month. Alright, moving on from that, a lot of discussion around Borderlands 4, its price point. We talked about it. We weren't sure if this game was going to be $80. It will, in fact, be $70. I think you know, Microsoft pricing in Outer Worlds 2 at $80 is one thing. I think everybody that has a functioning brain cell can realize that that is more of a ploy to get people to subscribe to Xbox Game Pass more than anything. I don't think they actually, in their right of mind, think that Outer Worlds 2 in a vacuum at $80 is this great idea, but the idea that it enhances Game Pass value, that is what they're looking at. I think anybody with a functioning brain cell at 2K would realize that pricing Borderlands 4 at $80 wouldn't be sending the game out to slaughter, because I still think the game would sell relatively well, but I don't think Borderlands is at that point where it's like we're coming off the heels of so many successful outings for Borderlands, and throw in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Borderlands 3, I don't care what metric Randy Pitchford throws out, yes, it sold well, yes, there was playtime attached to it, whatever. The general reception of that game was fairly mixed. Like, let's be real, if you can assess what people think about it, Borderlands 3, generally speaking, people do not consider it to be the best Borderlands game. And heading into Borderlands 4, if it was $80 and then you have these other editions priced even higher, I do think that would have been a problem. At $70, I do think people are going to be more open to checking it out. And on top of that, it's coming out on Steam day one. There's no Epic Game Store exclusivity. I think it's going to do pretty well on there. I will say that obviously these deluxe editions and super deluxe editions is something to look at. Now, let's not throw that crazy of a fit here, given that Borderlands is no stranger to DLC content. Borderlands 2 had a lot of DLC content. Borderlands 1 had its DLC content. Borderlands 3 had 2 season passes. However, I think from an optics standpoint, sheer optics, seeing the $130 price tag and realizing that if you need all of the if you want all of the content, you gotta pay $130, because the content attached to the Super Deluxe Edition is very relevant. You get the Gilded Glory pack, you get the Firehawk's Fury weapon skin. By the way, Gilded Glory, that's the pre-order bonus. You get the Bounty Pack bundle, you get Ornate Order pack, and the Vault Hunter pack. There's a lot of content, and we'll do a bigger deep dive into each individual piece of content in the Borderlands 4 editions, but the optics of, okay, you want all the content, you spend $130. I just think that $130 price tag is something that's going to push a lot of people away. At least it doesn't have fake early access, but I just think from an optics standpoint, $130 doesn't look great. Now, you could say, if you bought Borderlands 2 and all of the pieces of DLC for that game at full price, I don't know exactly what the price point would be, but I'm pretty sure it's well north of $100, and you're talking about 2012 when that game initially came out. But right out the gate, having a $130 edition and being told there's so much relevant content being tied to the Super Deluxe Edition, I think from an optics standpoint, it just doesn't look great. Ultimately, is not going to affect the game sales, I don't think, to that extreme of a degree. I also do question how hot of an IP Borderlands is, though. I think leading into the release of Borderlands 3, Borderlands had a lot of momentum, and you know what? Ultimately, if they drop a high-quality game with Borderlands 4, people are going to buy it in droves. It's going to do really well, and I have the most hope, because I loved Borderlands 1 and 2, and I think they did the right thing pricing this at $70 versus $80. I do think that would have made a big difference, and I think, you know, the publishers that are going to look at that $80 price point, I think are going to have to be very selective, and I'm very curious to see how Outer Worlds 2 does on PlayStation and on Steam, and I'm sure those numbers are going to be looked at, but that is such a unique scenario where Microsoft is clearly using that as an incentivization of people signing up to Game Pass, and I would argue probably as a way to create the illusion of heightened value for Game Pass as an excuse to up the price of Game Pass. We'll see if that ultimately happens, but I think outside of that, yes, a Mario Kart at $80, that's Nintendo. Nintendo IPs are kind of crazy, kind of wild out there. I think everything else needs to be really selective of the price points they go for. $70 is already a stretch for a lot of these games. We've seen the $50 price tag go really well with a lot of titles, but you know, pushing it to $80 I just think would be disastrous for some of these games. Borderlands 4 is an IP with so much history, so much lineage, that I think $70 is serviceable. I have seen a lot of people say, hey, I'm just gonna wait until the Super Deluxe Edition is on sale for $30, because in a couple of years that is gonna be the case. And if you are of the standpoint that I want all the content but $130, like, that's a steep price to pay, and it's just from an optics standpoint, because again, you look at Borderlands 2, and you want to get all the DLC with Borderlands 2, and if you bought all the DLC day one, you would have been paying, you know, well over $100, but in this case, just right out the gate, seeing that sticker price, a little bit of sticker shock with $130, and it's not even shock at this point. Star Wars Outlaws was $130. So many of those Ubisoft games, the Ubisoft games are the ones that I associate the $130 price tag the most with. They have done this exact price structuring so many times. Actually, I think from a Ubisoft standpoint, they would do the $70 edition, the standard edition, then they would do an $80 edition, and then $110, and then $130, something like that. But this, you've just got 3 editions. But it's just interesting. At least it's $70, that's all I'm saying. But that'll do it for me. Again, Legacy of Kain Defiance leaked as a PlayStation Plus title. Be on the lookout for that, hopefully getting added next month. But again, we have the slate of titles. Resident Evil, the classics are getting added, and a couple more titles. Myst just got added, Deus Ex, so on and so forth. And Borderlands 4 is $70. Let me know in the comment section down below. Is that enough to get you excited for this game? Based on what you've seen thus far, honestly, I haven't been that blown away by the gameplay. Like, I love Borderlands, you guys, and I feel like the gameplay experience is just something that's pretty enjoyable. Is it $70 enjoyable or $130 enjoyable in 2025? That's for you to decide. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Sound off there. As always, thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.